Hello, I'm Jo Lloyd, and this is Petplace, the podcast series by pet parents for pet parents. And today we're talking about pet anxiety. I'll be asking a panel of experts for advice on how to spot the signs and how to deal with it. We're going to learn tips and tools to keep our pets calm. Petplace. So I'm joined by three guests on today's episode. Welcome, ladies. Let's start by learning a bit about each of you. Let's start with you, Anneka.
Hello, my name's Anneka. I work in the Petplace mould store. So I've always had a massive interest in dogs. I did a degree in dog training and behaviour, and my background is all about animal management. I have 2 dogs myself, so basically my life is just revolving around dogs, and I just obsess over them.
So I'm Charlotte, or Charlie Carr, and I'm a clinical animal behaviourist. So I did a master's in clinical animal behaviour, and since then I've working with behaviour products such as Feliway Adaptil and being like a behaviour support for those.
Hiya, I'm Sarah Hayward. I'm a vet and owner of Mochdre Vets in Mochdre. It's a veterinary practice and rehabilitation centre.
Thank you. Well, it's great to have you all joining in on this podcast today. And Sarah, you've been with us before, so it's great to chat to you again. So today we're going to talk about how to deal with pet anxiety and how to keep our pets calm. And it is a big, big question, especially as we're now approaching, dare I say it, coming out of summer into autumn and winter months. So my first question is to you all, really, but we'll start with you, Anneka. What are the main symptoms of pet anxiety? What can we see for the first sort of symptoms that appear?
Okay, so a lot of this is going to be depending on the animal. So for example, for dogs, if you're seeing your dog that's drooling and it's not a Mastiff, obviously Mastiffs and St. Bernards, those sort of breeds, they do tend to drool just in general. But, you know, if you've got a Border Collie that's drooling, that's probably not normal for that dog. Things like shaking, so if you're in the car and the dog's shaking, again, if the dog just, it's not a normal thing for your dog, then again, that's something else I'd be looking out for. Panting, so you get a few different types of panting. If you've got a dog that's doing what's basically like a spoon pant, which is basically like a flat, quite wide pant, I would say that's quite a stressy pant. Obviously, if it's a hot day, all these things have to be taken into consideration. There's also something called a whale eye, which is basically where the dog is looking, it's like a bit of a side eye. So you'll see the whites of the eyes. And again, that's a very subtle thing, to be honest. A lot of people won't even notice it. But if you see your dog doing that in a certain situation and you just think, oh, hang on a second, he doesn't normally do that. Again, that could be a sign of anxiety. Another one I would say is hiding. So obviously if he's hiding under the bed and you've said, oh, should we go for a walk? And that would raise a few questions for me. And pacing and whining, again, those are the sort of things that I would be, again, it's sort of like a symptom of anxiety, really. So cats, I would say things like tail flicking, hiding, again, is quite common for cats. Crouching, raising their hair, the hackles, excessive grooming, that sort of thing. If they're losing hair, again, that can be something down to anxiety. Things like horses, they're pacing up and down. So if you think about like a field, they could be pacing up and down a field. Maybe their friends have gone and they're just a bit stressed about that. Ears back, that's one that you might find, if you approach a horse and the ears are going back, it's kind of like they're probably a bit not sure about you. Tail swishing and just any sort of retreating from you. Things like crib biting and weaving, so that is basically where the horse is chewing on like fence or like a stable door or something like that. And the weaving is where they're sort of moving their heads. And it's quite a stressful behaviour. So any of these sort of things I'd be looking at and thinking, I'm concerned about this animal and I would want to know why it's doing it and try and see what I can do to help it, basically.
Yeah, so I think Anneka's given quite a good comprehensive list, but even in the list she's given, there's still many more subtle things that you might see. And the biggest thing I hope people take from this podcast today is to try and understand what your pet does normally and notice when there's any little side changes, things that are different, any behaviours that are being repeated. The big thing we see that people always assume is normal is like a dog yawning, and they think, oh, is he bored, is he tired? And it's not. It could be that he's stressed. And the biggest thing that will motivate a dog in our surgery to make things stressful is actually the owner. So as well as looking at the subtle cues they're getting from their animals, they should be looking at their own behaviour, how they can make the sort of time with us a bit more positive, we actively encourage people to come and do social visits. We've got big open rooms. We encourage the dogs to go off the leads, smell around, just so that they get used to it, get sort of a bit more settled. But yeah, knowing sort of what your dog does normally and then looking for exaggerated actions, that could be a clue that there is anxiety going on. And if you're going into a consulting room and you're anxious, I can bet £1 million your dog will be anxious too.
And of course, now we're approaching a time where there are probably lots of new pet owners, lockdown pets, lockdown dogs, puppies, cats, etc. that have been bought. And this is a new experience completely. We're about to go into autumn and the changes that come with being in the UK in the autumn, and people going back to work. That stress, anxiety comes in. So you'll have a lot of owners coming to you not recognising these signs because the pet is new to them.
Yeah, I mean, there are videos and guides where people can look and see what signs would show anxiety and stuff. And if people are in a situation that's new to them, and it's not just with lockdown, it's any situation, the key is preparation and practice. If you think something is going to be stressful for your animal, break it up into baby steps. Attempt each baby step until they're happy with it, and then work on it. But prior to COVID, we used to sort of make recommendations from September for people with fireworks, and we'd show how working and doing planning and preparation they'd be able to cope better than the people that would turn up on the 5th of November and be shocked that their animals were stressed by the fireworks. So as hard as it is to say, a lot of anxiety problems come down to the owner. The owner has all the time, to prepare and get an animal used to a situation. Is when it's rushed and not planned that you end up with problems. And people do need to research, why is your animal doing X, Y, and Z, and how can you, make it better? Are they anxious? Are they bored? Are they frustrated? Are they doing these actions to get, some reward from you? And how the animal will respond does, to a point, be guided by the owner. And it is unfortunately the part of being an owner that you have to invest the time in training and making these situations better.
Yeah, with many of the different situations, especially if it does start from stress and fear, then you are trying to help them not just with training, but within their environment and also products. So you can get pheromone-based products. So for cats and dogs, they do pheromone products that you can spray or plug in, which then will help create that calming environment and help either the dog or the cat feel a bit more reassured and a bit more comfortable. But with the different scenarios, it's also best to see what happens before, what happens after, what might be that trigger or the stimuli, whatever it is that is causing that stress, and try to again start with the training for that. So either break it down like Sarah said, or start, if they are a brand new puppy or kitten, try and start and show them the things that are potentially scary in a positive way. So having these products around creates that positive environment, and then you're able to also train with treats, toys, praise, something fun, anything that the dog or cat will enjoy, and just create such positive bonds, which not only help the owner animal bond, but also the associations with anything that might be potentially scary.
Now, my dog is 14 and a half now. He's a Jack Russell Terrier, and I'd always describe him as quite a emotional, stressy dog, which sometimes I do, I'm taking ownership for this now because it's just been me and him. So I think that that's a lot to do with me and the fact that it's just me and him. And if I go out, he's thinking, oh, when's she coming back? And he really, even at 14 and a half, does suffer from stress. Fireworks aside, because things have changed now over the years, his hearing isn't great, so the fireworks don't bother him as much as they did when he was a young adult dog. And I've gone down the route of those products, but just anxiety in general, he does get really stressed. And now I'm faced with something new, is the fact that his hearing's gone. he can't hear me if I'm, say, upstairs. So then he thinks, oh, she's gone out again and left me. So I get that kind of stress out of him as well. What's the best thing for me to do with him?
So obviously being that age, that's a great age. You probably had quite a long time together. So I'd use that bond, be able to show that I use that as a positive association, but also give really strong cues that he'll know about. So if you'll be 1 minute, just maybe put your finger up for one. I'll be 1 minute. And obviously dogs use visual cues so much, so it will be really important for him. And then if you are going to be maybe a bit longer, try and do maybe a wave or 5 minutes, just so that he can then know, actually, you'll be back soon, or I'll relax and I'll lay down and I'll be able to know that you're coming back a bit later. And also try and train that settle. So whether you're there or not, being able to lay down and actually relax by himself is something that you should try and promote. And if he does choose to do that, reward it and try and see it occurring more and more.
Even at 15, you should still have sort of games and stuff, and older dogs thrive on mental stimulation. So if you're going out, he could still have, Snuffle Mats. We recommend them quite a lot for arthritic dogs and older dogs anyway. So making him play and do stuff with his brain when you go out is actually a good distraction, and age shouldn't be a barrier to that. And the older they are, the more you can play brain games and stuff with them. It shouldn't be that now he's old that you stop.
Right, okay. So Anneka, tell me about Snuffle Mats then, please.
So Snuffle Mats are basically like a rubber mat or whatever it is, and then you have fleece that you entwine. I mean, I'm sure you can get different materials, but this is what I know. And basically the idea is that you put food, probably dry food, it's probably easier, and you put it in the folds of the fleece, and then the dog it basically has to go and find that food. So it's a foraging exercise, basically. But for anxiety, it works really well because it gives the dog a focus, gives them something to do, and hopefully try and get them to either forget about or not be as bothered about what's going on, what it is that's bothering them, basically. So yeah, it's definitely worth a try if you have got an anxious pet. And you can use it for any animal. It's not just dogs, rabbits, guinea pigs, anything like that. They'll all thrive from it.
Oh, really? So what other products would you recommend for pet anxiety?
Like Sarah was saying, a lot of the puzzle feeders are really good. So you can get things that... like slow feeders, so the slow feeders are basically just like a bowl or something that's got raised bumps in it, and again it's just about the dog finding the food. Things like Kongs, you can fill them with food and pop them in the freezer, they'll last even longer. Fill them with paste or cheese, or Kong do actually do like a paste as well that you can use. Ardent Grange do a paste you can use. So all these things you can use, or any sort of wet dog food you could even use. You can have brain games as well, so you can get like wooden or plastic games. We do sell a few in store, and again it's just about the dog moving bricks or sliding things around with their nose. So there's a lot of things that you can buy, and you can try them and just see if it helps or not. Even if it doesn't help with the anxiety, the dog will probably enjoy it regardless.
With exactly what you said, with the Kongs or anything that's then frozen or a paste, the actual licking is self-soothing for a dog. So it will naturally reduce their anxieties as well. So if they are maybe a bit worried when you're not there, leaving them a Kong full of frozen chicken stock or something that they could lick, like yogurt on a licky mat, is naturally self-soothing, as well as chewing. So anything that's chewable that they're allowed, that can also help.
I might try all these tips actually when I'm in the house. So when I'm often upstairs or I'm working where I'm not in the same room as him, he also gets stressed. So I'm going to start introducing those while I'm in the house. Is that a good idea, or have I got to do this just when I'm not here completely?
I think you've got a risk of sometimes if you do it only when you're gone, the dog starts to think, oh, hang on a second, you've got the Kong out. This means you're leaving. So it's about how you do it. And I think sometimes if you do it when you're there and you're sat on the sofa or whatever, and you just let the dog have the Kong just because, and then sometimes you're not there and it's still the same, but the dog doesn't know. You can't tell because of the Kong, as it were. That's probably a better way of doing it, I would have said. We've
got quite a lot of owners that do film and see what their pet's behaviours are. So, even if you're upstairs having like a nanny cam, there's iPhone ones and stuff, and you can just see what he does when you're not actually there. And, sort of that's quite a good thing to get a camera so you actually know what they're doing and when.
Yeah, I've seen those little pet cams, and they're actually not that expensive, are they? And you hook them up to an app on your smartphone, and then you can just keep an eye on them, I guess. But I try to limit the length of time that I'm out anyway. But let's talk about other pet anxieties. For instance, my producer moved house recently, and his gorgeous cat started having a few little accidents at the front door. How should we tackle these clear signs of anxiety? Sarah, I'm going to come to you on that one.
Yeah, I'm sure Charlie will be able to go through things more, but the reason that there is sort of medical reasons why they start cats, dogs as well, but start urinating inappropriately, and the biggest cause is stress. So when you're moving home, you can actually start the process before you move house. So the use of Feliways are quite good. We use a product called Pet Remedy, and their wipes, their plug-ins, their sprays, you get them on the pet's bed so that they get used to the smell. And then the idea is when you move them somewhere, you put them in sort of one room so it's not overwhelming that they're suddenly in a new house. You put all the products in and sort of make it better for them, and then bit by bit you introduce them to the house. You know, they know where their litter trays are. You try and keep the tray you had before consistent, the products you use in it consistent. And then cats, especially when they're rubbing their cheeks and stuff, they're actually scent marking and leaving a trail. So the idea is to bit by bit let them do that to, you know, a room from their bed to the litter tray and stuff. And as horrible as it is, if a cat pees in the house, you shouldn't really reprimand them. They're doing it because, you know, they're stressed. Cats are inherently clean, and they're not doing it to spite you. They're not doing it to be naughty. They're doing it because they're anxious and they don't know, you know, where to go. And sometimes stress can cause cystitis, so they're actually urinating more than normal. So it could be that they're not able to get to the tray and stuff. So unfortunately, naughty producer, he should have taken steps before he moved house.
As Sarah said, cats can face rub and leave face deposits whilst maybe you might have seen it before with a cat rubbing either on you or fabric or furniture, doors, and it's actually a really good sign. It means they're comfortable and happy, and they go back and they smell that scent that they've deposited, which is pheromones. And that will then make them happy again, which then makes them want to do it more and more. So it's a lovely circle for them. But when they're not happy, they stop doing it. Then they don't have those natural pheromones around, which then doesn't make them feel happy. So it's quite a difficult situation when that happens, because nothing can really be done. And that's why the products are so good for cats, because it then starts that circle again. And Feliway has that exact pheromone deposit copy in the product, and it's scientifically proven to then calm or comfort cats, just as it would if it was the natural actual pheromone that they have. And there's also a brand new version, which is Feliway Optimum, which is even better calming and better help for them to feel that reassurance again. But especially things that are stressful, like moving house, that's the thing that would then break that lovely circle of feeling comfortable, because they would get a bit worried. Their control has gone, their schedule has gone, and their reassurance of their environment that they've created, their territory, has also changed. So starting with that Feliway, you can either have the plug-in in the room the cat spends the most time, or the spray maybe on bedding, towels, whether they're being transported or a room they're staying in, and just trying to create that comfort environment again. They last normally about 30 days, the diffusers, and it's best to plug in at minimum 24 hours before you want them to work perfectly. So say if you are moving into a new house, maybe ask to go a week before the cat moves in and set up a room for them and plug in the diffuser even a week before they get there, just so you know that whole room is full of those lovely pheromones. We don't know they're there. We can't smell them. We can't perceive them, but cats can.
I've used the dog version, actually. It is really, really good. Anneka, do you sell all of those products then?
Yeah, we sell Feliway, we sell Pet Remedy, and I think that's it for diffuser type things. But yeah, we sell all of those.
Very popular?
Yeah, we sell a lot, especially around Bonfire Night and, the big events, really. Fireworks, New Year's is what I was trying to say. Again, it is a case of trying to prepare beforehand, but sometimes owners do get caught out in an emergency and, they're there if they need them. So, we usually have them in stock.
So coming on to Bonfire Night, I'm sure you'll all agree, there's no such thing as just one night anymore. It's not even a week. It's more like a whole season, isn't it? And it's a stressful time, isn't it? What advice could you give for nervous dogs? And I'm going to start with you, Charlie, actually, because I know we've just talked about that product. It must become extremely popular.
Yeah, definitely. Especially for dogs, we find that Adaptil, well, both Feliway and Adaptil, but Adaptil for dogs during fireworks is, I think, a saviour. Just for me personally, with my own dog, who is a rescue and slightly nervous anyway, we can't explain these loud bangs that just come out of nowhere to them, or the sound, the light, anything that might be triggering. So it's quite hard to kind of explain to them this isn't scary. They're going to be naturally scared of it. So having some preparations in place can really help. So dogs might find a safe area, a den, anywhere that they like to sleep, hide, a crate, for example, that's hidden with a blanket that's open. They can go there and they can feel reassure themselves in that den area. But also just closing curtains, blinds, making sure all doors are shut, turning the TV or radio on quiet, just trying to muffle out as much sound as possible. And also just trying to, if you have a puppy, maybe associate those sounds early on with something positive, starting very quiet and building it up louder and louder.
So like a noise conditioning, I guess, from an early age, is it? Yeah. Sarah, would you have any top tips as well? I'm sure that you have so many questions from new owners about the fireworks season and noises and stresses.
Yeah, so just following on from what Charlie said, there is actually CDs and stuff available called Sound Scary, so you can start them on a low volume and get your animals used to sort of loud bangs. It's not just fireworks, there's thunder, lightning, cars backfiring, and gradually over a period of time you get them more used to it. The biggest tip we have for fireworks and anxiety in general is that all pets should have somewhere that is their space that they can retreat to. And when they're in that, so if we say it's like a den or something, if a firework's going off, the owner needs to leave them quietly in that den area. Going down to them and hiding with them and stuff, they perceive that as the owner's scared, not that the owner's checking up on them. So it is a case of sort of, giving them a safe space, preparing them. If they're a little bit worried and they come to you, you give them gentle reassurance. You don't make a big thing of them. But yeah, sadly, fireworks is not just one night, it's many nights. People ask us about sedating their dogs. We only recommend it in very few circumstances. There's better preparation to do and stuff, and it is planning as early as possible and getting your pet used to the situation.
Brilliant. I definitely agree. What Sarah is saying, that accidentally you can reward them for that response, that stress response, and then you might accidentally be encouraging it to happen more and more. And also, if they are stressed from the fireworks, you might be rewarding it and saying you should be stressed for the fireworks, when obviously we want the opposite. We want more calm, comforting behaviours and trying to get them feel that this is okay, you'll be okay through this.
One thing that I do with my dogs is I get filled hooves and I put them in the freezer, either already filled or I can fill them with wet dog food or something else that I use. And I basically save them for Bonfire Night or when I can just sense that there's going to be fireworks, because one of my dogs doesn't like fireworks, so I just know that if I give him something to eat and he's very food motivated, that he'll just be quiet then. And the other thing I was going to say is, the other thing I do with them is when a firework goes off, I tend to throw them a piece of kibble, so then it's kind of like firework food, firework food, firework food. So it's not necessarily preparation, but it's just like, we're stuck in this moment, there's fireworks going off, I didn't think there were going to be any, but seeing as there is, I know my dogs will eat food anyway, so I just give them food, basically get them to associate the firework with the food. So if you've got a dog like that, that can work out really well. So a dog that's maybe a little bit stressy, but not overly stressed, not to the point that you need to add medications or anything like that. I find that really helpful with my dogs anyway.
I'm loving all these top tips. For me, Basil was always really stressed about Bonfire Night, really, really, to a point of it would upset me to see how stressed he was. And I tried everything. And then now it's at the stage where obviously he's lost his hearing. He's not bothered by them, but I'm not taking any chances. I still close the shutters, put the music on, put the TV on loud, all of those distractions, make the den, just in case. Am I still doing the right thing?
Yes, definitely.
They have shown that dogs respond quite well to classical music. So if you are putting on music, try and, pick something like that. There are actually websites that do on a loop classical music for dogs, and it has been shown not just with fireworks but anything anxious. And more than anything, I do think having a den and closing the curtains, we assume they associate the noise, but it could be that they see the flash and that they know something terrible is going to happen. So as many of the stimulations you can help your pet avoid, the better. As
dogs age, they're used to their routines, and I think you saying that you're continuing what you're doing is probably quite reassuring for him. If he could hear the fireworks, maybe he might hear the odd one or something, and the routine's changed as well. That could be even more upsetting. So I think carrying on with what you're doing, just because he might be picking up upon your body language or anything like that, it's worthwhile just sticking with what you're doing. Just keep it all the same for him. Just try and keep him calm that way as well.
And they can feel vibrations too, so definitely continue. Just, I would say, add in Adaptil plug-in as well, because it can help all dogs no matter their age.
Yes, I do stock up at that time of the year, because going into winter as well, is there such a thing as seasonal disorder for dogs that humans get as the nights draw in? Is this something that affects our pets, for instance?
Indirectly, yes. Anything sort of similar to what's been said already that changes their routine is going to affect them. So when there's shorter days and darker nights, they're not getting maybe the exercise and the stimulation that they want. Naturally, if an owner is a bit down that it's dark or it's wet, they're going to pick up on the stress and anxiety of an owner. So in general, they don't have the symptoms and signs that we do of sadly being depressed or stuff, but anything that will change their routine. I personally believe a dog, the highlight of their day should be going for a walk, and most dogs don't care, whether it's in the dark, whether it's windy or whatever. You just, take precautions where you walk them, and, make sure that they still get the chance to be out, smell and do stuff, and that's more important to them than anything. And if an owner says, oh, he's acting differently, it's more likely the owner's acting differently and they're picking up on it.
Anneka, do you have anything to add to that?
Like you said about walks and things might change because you might want to get home earlier because it's getting dark. A dog could possibly pick up on something like that. Obviously, if it's dark as well and you've got a dog that's reacted to other dogs, and there's a black dog, for example, they might respond to that because they might not be able to see that dog as well. If you've got a dog that's getting blind or getting older, again, they might be reacting to things in the dark. It's just little things really that you wouldn't necessarily think of, but it might explain why a dog is reacting a certain way just because of the season.
Yeah, so with seasonal changes and winter on the way, what do we need to be aware of on the anxiety stress level?
Well, just in general, with sort of winter comes colder and damper conditions, so not necessarily anxiety, but we do think, same as in humans, that things like arthritis is worse during this time. So your pet may be sort of showing unusual behaviours, and it's worth figuring out, is it pain related, is it anxiety related, and sort of treating them accordingly. Come winter and stuff, dogs that go swimming and stuff, they can still go swimming, but you just need to dry them off properly. But the biggest anxiety you're going to see in the coming months is for puppies that have been poorly socialised, so that don't know what an umbrella is, don't know what someone in a heavy coat or a hat or something. So again, it's trying to prepare and get used to things that they may not have encountered before, and having a plan in your mind how they're going to face it and how you're going to act, and just sort of trying to reward positively so that any new situations that they can cope with.
Fabulous. So, Charlie, as the nights draw in then, are dogs more wary in the dark? And in particular, for instance, I know, Anneka, you touched on the fact that if the dog is, struggling with his eyesight, obviously dark nights doesn't help. And in particular with my dog, his hearing's not there. Last winter it was, he was fine. This winter it's going to be very different. So, Charlie, with that in mind, do you have any more top tips?
I'd probably try, and if you are worried, then I'd try maybe always keep them on lead, keep them close, maybe just look ahead what is coming up. Should I just stay to the side and avoid it just to be safe, or am I able to tackle this with a few treats and create a positive association? Depending on each of the scenarios that would be worrying or challenging, then try and break them down and see what is the best for me and my pet, and how can we get through it in a positive way for them, but also me, and try and just relax a bit, because dogs will be able to perceive what you're feeling and feel that too. So with my dog, I would go out at night, and now it's getting a bit darker sometimes. I thought, oh, he doesn't like the dark, but it's me. It's because I want to get home as quickly as possible as soon as it starts to get dark, and he's picked up on it. So it's also important for us to try and relax as well, and it is a lovely time for them. So let them smell, let them take that time, and just be aware of the safety aspects. So keeping them on lead, making sure their chip is up to date. And if you are leaving them in the garden a few more times than normal, because there is that shorter period of going on walks and you might not be able to do the times you normally do, then make sure your garden's secure, but try to keep it as the other seasons. Try to keep it as normal as you can. Structure and routine is so important as well.
And Anneka, I mean, I'm guessing that Petplace have so much advice and so many products to help us as we head into winter to still be able to socialise our pets and relieve that stress for them, because it's interesting that all of these tips point to the fact that as owners, it's such a responsibility, and that anxiety, there's these little things that add up to so much, and going forward, just making sure that they are still socialised. They don't care about the weather. It's us, isn't it, that cares about the weather. But yeah, I'm sure that you are full of amazing products to help us still socialise our pets in the winter.
Yeah, of course. We've got plenty of products that can help. I think, though, what's important to say as well is that we're open from 9 till 6, apart from on Sunday. And, you can bring your dog into store, or any animal, obviously, what's appropriate. But, you can bring your puppy in, you can bring your adult dog, you can bring your older dog in. We can fit coats, we can fit harnesses, we can fit all these things are not just about getting products for your dog. They're all about exposing your dog to situations, getting them used to people, seeing other dogs. So it's not just about coming and buying stuff from us. It's also about the experience that your pet has while they're here. Like I say, you'll see other dogs, you'll see other people. There'll be plenty of smells and things in store. Obviously, if it's dark outside and you don't want to walk in the dark, you can come around the store. Obviously Abigail's got the dog park as well. So when that's open again, people can take their dogs in and socialise them that way, assuming it's appropriate for that dog. So there's plenty of options out there in our stores. So we do encourage people to bring their dogs in, bring the puppies in, and just get them used to all sorts of situations. And trolleys, things like that, all the things you wouldn't necessarily think of. Loud noises, we have cages going in and out all day. These are all things that dogs need to be, okay with. And I'd also say as well that a lot of people blame themselves and they think that they've caused a reactive dog, or they've caused their dog to be anxious. And sometimes it is genetics. Sometimes the dog is wired that way, and there's only so much that you can do. However, I think it's important that you do what you can do as well. So although your dog may be prone to being anxious, we can still do things. We can still expose them to things at a gradual level that they're okay with, without, going overboard about it. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the animal that you've got is the animal that you've got, and we can do what we can for them, and we should, obviously. But I wouldn't feel guilty about the fact that your animal is the way that it is necessarily.
If he is losing his hearing, high pitch is the last thing to go. So it would be worth investing in like a referee's whistle. He should still be able to hear that. And if his eyesight's going as well, especially coming up to winter, by the reflective strips and tabards, they can still see reflections.
Great. Thank you so much, actually. That's another thing to my shopping list. It's going straight in my basket. Thanks so much. It's amazing to get your advice, and thanks for taking part in the Petplace podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Petplace. Don't forget, you can get more information and advice from the official website, farmandpetplace.co.uk. That's it for another episode. See you next time on the Petplace podcast, when we'll be looking at ways to care for wildlife during the winter months.